Awards and honors to the school's larger communities of interest, including often recognition of alumni. Today I've been asked to do the latter honor, announcing our 2008 inductee into the Amelia County High School Hall of Fame. I've received this request because I myself am a member of the ACHS Hall of Fame. I also taught this year's inductee, and I also shared with him the brotherhood of arms of America's military. Our inductee today is the youngest member ever inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I pray that it will ever be so. In his short 24 years, he, with his young wife, had only begun to find his way in life. But in his brief days, he gave mightily to you and to me, and to the larger Amelia and greater American and human communities. He had only begun to set and meet his goals, taking care of those around him. He had learned the meaning of service. He had lived the meaning of duty, and he has hallowed the meaning of sacrifice. Indeed, he made the ultimate sacrifice, giving what President Lincoln called his last full measure of devotion. In so doing, he made his life holy, true to the word sacrifice, which is from the Latin sacrificium, sacer, sacred, plus facere, to make sacred, to make holy, sacrifice. I speak, of course, of Jason Russell Arnette, Staff Sergeant, Infantryman, Company C, Battalion D, 14th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 10th Mountain Division of the United States Army, and Amelia County High School class of 2001, killed in the line of duty in April 2007 near Baghdad by an improvised explosive device during his third combat tour in Iraq. On the day of his mortal wounding, he was leading a squad of soldiers in that far-off land in furtherance of American policies and goals that he had sworn to uphold and defend. His first concerns were of his men. He died a day later from the chaos of battle, and much too young. Now, I'm not here today to comment on that war, or the nature of those policies that placed Jason in those circumstances, nor could I, even were I so predisposed as I remain in uniform. Nor can I really comment on what Staff Sergeant Arnette experienced in combat or battle, because while I have served during wartime, I, unlike he, have never been under direct fire, nor otherwise so directly in harm's way. His 4 years of war service was as a lifetime compared to my 38 years in uniform, not under fire. His death was tragic. Like parents, no teacher ever wants to see one of his or her students receive imminent death. Yet Jason clearly perished doing what he believed in, service to an American cause greater than himself. He died making things holy. And we do not honor him so much as he has honored us. Well, I taught Jason in AFJ ROTC for 2 years, 1988, 1999, when he was a sophomore in Cougar Flight, in 2000, 2001 as a senior in Eagle Flight. Those were years when our Corps of Cadets numbered over 100 students, and I was still adjusting as a new teacher to the high school setting. I remember Mr. Arnette coming in as a sophomore and expressing a desire to go to West Point. I let him know that he needed to get busy across the board to prepare himself in academics, tough courses, class offices, clubs, sports, volunteerism, math, and science. In October of 1998, I made sure I got him the appropriate literature to help prepare him and motivate him for the U.S. Military Academy. He had told me that Reverend Drawford of his church had urged him to consider West Point in the U.S. military. I always associated Jason with church for that reason and for his solid participation with his congregation. And he generally showed his reverential side in my classroom, which on occasion I probably confused with passivity. Jason wasn't a great test taker, and the grade book shows that, like for many of us, military drill, that is, his marching and saluting, in his early days didn't necessarily come across as the most natural of endeavors. In ROTC, he was a B and C student. And I was a little bit disappointed that Cadet Arnette didn't come back in the Corps for his junior year, but I've never been one for pushing my students on a particular path just because it happened to work for me. However, I did feel at times that Mr. Arnette could have used the fire built under him. But he did come back as a cadet senior, and he kept a B average that year, exempting both of my exams. I remember his enthusiasm to pour ticket on the 72-foot rappelling tower and the leadership reaction basically an urban warfare obstacle course. Unfortunately, my last recollection of him was that day as my student is my mild chastising of his loading up his lunch plate with free hamburgers on a day when I was unsure that we would have full provisions for all who were on board for that field trip. In retrospect, that incident obviously fell into the don't sweat the small stuff category, because as always, everybody was fully fed and you could give away the leftovers. Now, I had hurt his feelings that day, I think, but I did learn a useful insight that I shall keep as long as I teach. But let me get back briefly to Jason's honoring of us. You, the class of 2008, are about to go maybe blithely or maybe with a little trepidation into a brave new world. This Memorial Day week in particular, today is the last day of it, I ask you to pause for a moment to reflect on your predecessor, Staff Sergeant Arnette, and his sacrifice, and the sacrifice of millions of Americans since the mid-18th century, upon whose lives the foundation of our American civilization is built. There have also, by the way, been a score of others from this public school system: Russell Grove, Amelia High School, Benton County High, and their small country schoolhouse antecedents, who also made the ultimate sacrifice for us. World War I, World War II, Korea, Cold War, Vietnam, and of course our current warfare. They all honor us as Jason honors us, for as the gospel informs, no greater love hath a man than he laid down his life for his friends.
Amen.
I do not know what Jason's final thoughts were, nor do I know for sure his frame of mind in his post-high school and then in his Army years. I do suspect, however, that he would want us to serve each other, to do our duty in all things, to live our lives with integrity, and to be kind to and to love one another.
Amen.
I ask now, please, that his widow, Sky Hughes Arnette, Jason's mother, Michelle, and his sister,